Okay, welcome to this second video on substitution. In this video we're going to look at equations, sometimes called formulas. Formulas and equations are essentially the same thing. In the last video we worked with expressions, and the only difference between an expression and an equation is an equal sign. We have something equal to something else. And we're going to use our techniques in the last video to work out values. It's very similar to what we did in the last video. And you can see there's quite a lot of formulas down here, lots of equations. We'll talk through them, ones that you should know about or you might know about, and if you don't, you will see them as you go through your maths in secondary school. Okay, so let's get started. Let's look at the first formula up here. We've got b equals 2 bracket a plus 1 close bracket, and we're told that a is equal to 4. So that means we can solve this equation to find the value of b if we know that a is equal to 4. And this is actually very powerful because we can always work out b given this equation as long as we know values for a. So we could have lots of different values for a, and we can always work out b. I've chosen a to be 4 in this case. So let's work that out. So let's substitute in. So b is equal to 2 bracket 4 plus 1. Well, you have to know your order of operation. So we have to do the bracket first. So 4 plus 1 is 5. And we have 2 of them, so it's 2 times 5, because we have 2 5s, we have 2 of these brackets. So 2 times 5 is 10. And that's us, solved it. So b is equal to 10. The value of b is 10, as long as a is equal to 4. And remember, if you had a different value of a, you just put it in and you would just work out and you get a different value for b. So very powerful in mathematics. Let's look at a more difficult one. So this one here. Now, I've just made this one up, and I've gave a value of a is 3, b is 5, and c is -2. And we have to work out what d would be. What's the value of d if you know a, b and c? Well, we just substitute in. So let's substitute it in. So that's 5 is b is 5, so that's 5 squared, minus 4 times, a is 3, and c is -2. I've just put them in a wee bracket to keep them nice and neat. This all means times, you're all going to times all these. So, we'll take the square root of the thing inside the square root sign. Well, we have to work out what that is first, so we have to work all this out before we can take the square root. So let's keep the square root in. Order of operation tells us we must do the power first, so 5 squared is 25. Minus, well, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times -2 is -24. So 4 times that gives me -24, but there's a subtraction outside, so you should know your rules for integers. So that's going to be 25. Subtracting a negative is the same as adding the number. So we're going to add that number, and adding that together we get the square root of 49. And what does that mean? Well, that means square root of 49 is some number multiplied by itself must give me 49. So the answer to that is 7. So the answer is 7. So d must be 7 when a, b and c take these values. Okay, and so we can work out d for any of these values. You can change these values down the light and find out the value of d. Let's look at equations or formulas that you should maybe know. You know some of them anyway, and if you don't know the other ones that are here, then you can you'll see them later on in the course. So I'll just rub this wee bit out. Here we go, the first one. First formula up here is the area of a rectangle. Everybody should have met that, I would have thought. So this is the length and this is the breadth of the rectangle. And to work out the area, remember what the area is inside of the rectangle. To work that out, we simply multiply the length by the breadth. So if we know the length and the breadth, we can work out the area. So let's attach some values to this. Let's make L equal to 4 and B equal to 5. Just make the numbers easy. Then what would the area of that rectangle be? Well, it would be, using the formula, A for area is equal to length is 4 times 5. So the area the inside of the space inside that rectangle would have 20 units squared. That's going to be 20. Okay, so that's one I'm pretty sure you've met before. Here's another one you probably met. The area of a right angle triangle. So here's a right angle triangle here. And for the area of a right angle triangle, it's half the base times the height. Half the base times the height. So I put in some values of h. I made h equal to 6. Put the equal sign in there. And b is equal to 10. So what's the area of this triangle, the space inside here? Well, using the formula, that'll be a half times the base, which is 10, times the height, which is 6. And working that through, a half of 10 is 5. 5 sixes are 30. So the area of that triangle will be 30 units squared. Answer 30. Okay. Right, here's another one. You maybe not have saw this formula before. We don't tend to use this formula very much. We tend to just work out the perimeter just by adding up these things. But the perimeter of a rectangle can be given with this formula. And this formula, all this formula is really saying is adding up all the values round outside. And we've just tidied it up a wee bit. So, what's the perimeter of this rectangle? If we start here and we wander round the outside of it and come back to where we start, what would the length of that be? Well, according to the formula, it would be P is equal to, this is the perimeter, it's equal to 2 bracket, L plus W, close bracket. So, I've attached values into this rectangle already. The length is 7 and the width is 4. So let's see what the perimeter would be. That would be 2 bracket, L7 plus W is 4. We have to do the brackets first. So 7 plus 4 is 11. 2 times 11 would give you 22. So it has a length of 22 units, whatever the units are, centimetres, metres, whatever the units were. Okay. So we're using substitution here to put values into a formula to work out a missing value. That's what we're doing. Okay. We'll do 2 more. This formula up here, if you do physics, if you haven't done physics yet, so you'll probably do it in, at some point when you go to science. So this formula says the speed is equal to distance over time. Distance over time. So D stands for distance, T stands for time, and S stands for speed. So if I say to you the distance has a value of 80 and the time has a value of 4, what's my value for S, the speed? Well, we just substitute in. So this is quite an easy formula. So S is equal to 80 over 4. So my S would be equal to 20. And depending on the units, speed could be measured in kilometres per hour, metres per second, things like that. But you don't have to worry about that. This is the maths, and we're just using substitution to work out values just now. Right, my last one, probably the most complicated one here, is to do with a right angle triangle. Here's a right angle triangle. And I have A, B and C for the lengths of the right angle triangle. And it turns out, for any right angle triangle, we can use this formula here to work out C. Now it turns out that C is the longest side here. To work out this value C, as long as we know the A and the B in the triangle, and it's right angled, we can work out C using this formula. So what's the value of C then? What's the length of this part here? Well, take our formula, we write it out, and we substitute in. So the first thing we have to substitute for A, I put an answer of 4, so A is 4, so that's 4 squared, plus my B value. Well, my B value is 3, and we've got to square it, so it's 3 squared. And if we work this out, that tells me the value for C. So let's do that. And C then is equal to the square root of all of this thing in here. Well, 4 squared is 16, plus 3 squared is 9. So it's the square root of whatever this bit is in here. Well, 16 plus 9 is 25. So that's the square root of 25. So C is equal to 5. Remember, the square root, a number times itself must give me 25. So that's is 5. Square root of 25 is 5. Okay, right, I think that's us finished here. We'll just summarise what we've done. Well, we've taken the topic of substitution, and we've looked at equations, and we've worked out the missing value that we've got given other values. And we started off nice and easy here. We just have to be careful that we know our order of operation. We then gave a more complicated equation here, and we had to find the value of D, knowing the values for A, B and C. And I made C negative here, just to make it a bit harder. And we put our values in, and we had to be careful about negative signs here, and we had to know what rules for integers, and we have to know what a square root is, and we've got a value of 7. We then talked about common or well-known formulas or equations that you get in mathematics, and we started off with the area of a rectangle, and that should be dead easy, and most people excuse me, should know that already. And most people would probably know the next one as well. That's the area of a triangle, a right angled triangle at half the base times the height, and we know the sides here, so we can work out the area using the formula. And we then went on to perimeter, quite a useful wee formula for perimeter, and that's for a rectangle, so this rectangle shape, so this perimeter is only to do with this rectangle. And yeah, there's a point to note here that these formulas only work for the particular shapes that we're talking about. We then went into a bit of science, and we looked at speed equals distance over time. So once you do science, you'll see the maths popping up in science. And this one here that is very, very important as you go up through your mathematical career. You come across right angled triangles an awful lot in mathematics, and there's particular formulas that we know, and this is probably the most important one that we use. Given two sides of a right angled triangle, we can work out the third side, and this is the longest side that we're working out here using that formula. Okay, right, that's the end of the video, and then the substitution.